term present in many religions. It has been defined as a divine influence which operates in humans to regenerate and to inspire virtuous impulses and to impact strength to endure trial and resist temptation. The most open expression of that is in the way former President Obama attempted to comfort the Charleston, South Carolina congregation after the death of their leader in a racially motivated shooting. He led them in singing Amazing Grace. Many people have experienced grace moments, and intuitively they know what it is. But trying to express this idea is challenging because grace is complicated. When St. Augustine was asked the question, "What is grace?" he replied, "I know until you ask me. When you ask me, I do not know." The reason grace is so complicated to define is because of the many meanings, including beauty, elegance, charm, mercy, flow, harmony, and divine love. I like the definition of grace that a dear friend gives. She says, and I quote, "It's the experience of awe, gratitude, and unconditional love when you are in harmony with yourself, with others, and with the power that creates the cosmos." Another friend defines grace as love that seeks you out when you have nothing to give in return. She continues saying, "It is love coming at you that has nothing to do with you, and it's being loved when you are unlovable." By the simplest definition, grace is unmerited favor or unconditional love. It's the exercise of love and kindness to benefit or serve another, whether they deserve it or not. However, I believe that everyone is deserving of grace because rich or poor, strong or weak, everyone needs kindness. And to live in a state of grace is not based on worthiness. Grace is found all around us if we open our eyes to its presence. It's in the rain that brings relief to drought-ridden farms. It resides in the love that exists between two people. It's what happens to someone when they miraculously escape injury. It's even in the simple occurrences that some people call good luck, as in those occasions when we find a great parking space in a crowded parking lot, as in those and or don't get a parking ticket after our meter expired. The gift or check that comes unexpectedly in the mail, or the cozy comforts that make up home. It's the unexpected lead for the perfect job opportunity that comes from a stranger. I've been thinking about grace a lot lately, mainly due to the state of the world and the unprecedented times that we're living in. I know that that since time immemorial, the phrase unprecedented has been used to describe unusual stretches of time. But I have never experienced such an upside down world as this in my lifetime. It's having to experience the deaths of so many loved ones in a span of 12 months. It's bearing witness to such blatant hatred directed at people for no other reason than their very existence. I grew up during the era of Jim Crow in a small Mississippi town, and I never faced such vitriol as I have seen directed at Black people over the last 4 or 5 years. It's the polarization between two sides on the subject of integration, immigration, that I find mind-boggling. Other than Native Americans and the descendants of Africans who were enslaved here, this country is filled with people who migrated from other parts of the globe. Moreover, to be bombarded with the daily information and misinformation from well-meaning individuals, both professionals and friends, regarding a vaccine that may save lives is also daunting and creates self-doubt. What has any of this to do with grace, you ask? Thomas More informed that the alternative to a life of grace is the philosophy of self and the ideal of the self-made person. The implication being that we don't need one another or the grace of life. I disagree, because if we are aware beings and want to see our country succeed and the world in a better state, it's time for us to take a deep look at grace and begin living from it and take responsibility for how we show up in the world with others each and every minute of the day. Author G.K. Chesterton once said that the meanest fear is the fear of sentimentality that often robs life of grace and honesty. He continues saying, it's because we are afraid that people will think of us as being soft. So we hide our tenderness, saying thanks when we mean God bless you, and so long when we mean I'll be lonely without you. In this way, we condemn true sentiment along with sentimentality. And by doing so, we live on the surface of things when we really want to speak and act from the heart. How many opportunities have we missed when we could have given grace an opportunity to come by, to visit for a while? How much does it cost to give a compliment, a favorable word, without any expectation of receiving something in return? How much does it cost? Not in monetary terms, but in value. Why be negative when you can be supportive or positive? Why not make space for grace to appear and to work through us? When you help someone or are extended a helping hand, when you support someone or are invited to lean on someone, when you bolster someone up or are bolstered up when you are struggling. I view grace as a social lubricant because as much as we value our independence, we are social beings, interdependent one to another, with our birth, education, and employment all possible because of the cooperation of others. And it's grace that eliminates the friction that allows us to work together harmoniously. One of my favorite television shows is CBS Sunday Morning. On a recent segment, former President George W. Bush was being interviewed. And part of the discussion, he posed the question of grace to the reporter. When he talked about the way, as a people, we have become so polarized in right, my way, and wrong, your way, that a simple act of two people from different political parties, he and former First Lady Michelle Obama, greeting each other with a hug, began to trend on social media. And on another occasion, at a memorial service, celebrating the life of a public servant, a former prisoner of war, no less, it was his offering her an Altoid mint that became newsworthy. Grace is the state that we are in when we are doing nothing but just being who we are. Have we fallen that far from grace? We talk a lot about what's disgraceful by standards of a civilized society, but we will either live with grace or humankind in its entirety falls apart to live in disgrace. Arnold Toynbee points out in a study of history, the rise and fall of 26 civilizations, that it's humanity's spiritual quest that propelled it forward, and that grace could be the lifeblood of civilization. But he said, when we drift away from its practice, societal cohesion weakens and civilization comes tumbling down. If we can accept that we always exist in a state of grace, maybe we will be able to live our lives more graciously. In Falling Out of Grace, author Subunfo Somé cautions that we may create who we want our leaders to be, which may have nothing at all to do with who they really are. She continues saying, we create the space that has to be filled. And if it's filled, we accept them. And if not, then our leaders have fallen short. But in actuality, what they have fallen short of is something he or she may have no role in creating. Leadership does not make people superior beings. It just makes them good at what they do, leading. Grace is our benevolence of heart and our generosity of spirit that is shown in so many ways through you at UUNB. It's unconditional love and the beauty that is our humanity. It is our inner beauty that radiates outward, touching everyone we meet. The grace that we are imbued with was given to us to nurse the wounds of the other. And at some time or another in our human existence, we are all the other. It's the unseen hand that comes from the Spirit of life, raising us up when we most need it, moving us to go out of our way to help a stranger. Sometimes I find grace in the stars that continue to shine at night despite my personal problems, or seeing the perfect fullness of the moon, or a red-orange sunrise that lifts me out of private pain. Author Sarah Bonbronick describes grace as our spiritual daily bread. But she says we have to remember to ask for it with a grateful heart and not worry about where there will be enough for tomorrow. I find that in cultivating an awareness of gratitude, I recognize the flow of grace. And in noticing the patterns, I recognize the prominence of grace as it flows through my life. The Indian sage Sri Ramakrishna tells us that the winds of grace are always blowing. We only have to open our sails. So do it. Invite grace in now. Welcome grace and allow her to warm our hearts and minds. From my heart to yours, may it be so.